Hi, I'm Mark, a teacher of history, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Predicts the Future, which is just what it sounds like. Hollywood, either through a television show or a movie or a combination, predicts what's going to happen later on. Now, for this episode, why people are so crazy today, we're going to go all the way back to 1965 and a movie called Doctor Zhivago. So World War I comes up in 1914, and people are just waiting to fight. They're looking for an excuse, and the Russians are all for it. Okay, so now let's link this to the movie. In the movie, Doctor Zhivago, he's orphaned. He lived on the steppes, which are those grasslands that go from Russia all the way to Mongolia. And he comes to live in Moscow with some relatives. He grows up, obviously, to be a doctor, but he's also a very successful poet. He's a young guy and he's very successful. Okay, now in this scene, it's the start of World War I, and there's a military parade, and there's a lot of excitement, and people are all juiced up for war, as you can hear the narrator say. Now, the movie is narrated by Dr. Zhivago's half-brother, whom he's never met, okay? And Dr. Zhivago's half-brother is a communist. So what we're going to do is, this first scene we're going to see is the parade where people are all juiced about the war, and you can even see men coming out from the crowd cheering to join the army, which is what Zhivago's brother does. Now, this is what I want you to pay attention, okay? In this scene, why does he say he joins the army? Okay? What is he supposed to do for the communists when he's in the army? And why is he given that task? What do the communists want?
In bourgeois terms, it was a war between the Allies and Germany. In Bolshevik terms, it was a war between the Allied and German upper classes, and which of them won was a matter of indifference. I was ordered by the party to enlist. I gave my name as Petrov. They were shouting for victory all over Europe, praying for victory to the same God. My task, the party's task, was to organize defeat. From defeat would spring the revolution, and the revolution would be victory for us. The party looked to the conscript peasants, most of them wearing their first good pair of boots. When the boots wore out, they'd be ready to listen. When the time came, I was able to take 3 battalions with me out of the front line, the best day's work I ever did. But for the moment, there was nothing to be done. There were too many volunteers, like me. Mostly it was mere hysteria. But there were men with better motives, men who saw the times were critical and wanted a man's part. Good men, wasted. Unhappy men, too. Unhappy in their jobs. Unhappy with their wives. Doubting themselves. Happy men don't volunteer. They wait their turn and thank God if their age or work delays it. The ones who got back home at the price of an arm or an eye or a leg, these were the lucky ones. Even Comrade Lenin underestimated both the anguish of that 900-mile-long front and our cursed capacity for suffering. By the second winter of the war, the boots had worn out. But the line still held. Their greatcoats fell to pieces on their backs. Their rations were irregular. Half of them went into action without arms, led by men they didn't trust.
Come on, you bastards!
And those they did trust?
Come on, comrades. Come on. Come on. Come on! Come on!
At last, they did what all the armies dreamed of doing. They began to go home. That was the beginning of the revolution.
Dr. Zhivago's brother, the narrator, if you notice, it was Ben Kenobi from the original Star Wars, Sir Alec Guinness, the actor. He joined the army the communists told him to. They wanted to organize defeat. They wanted to engineer chaos. They wanted the Russians to lose. And when the Russians lost and people became really desperate and had nowhere else to turn, that would be the beginning of the revolution. He even said the nothing to do right now was all hysteria. And the young conscripts, the young guys that had been taken into the army, most of them were in their very first good pair of boots. But when the boots ran out, they would be ready to listen. And that's exactly what you saw, okay, at the end of that. Although the Russians did suffer very badly. So in other words, the communists wanted everything in their country to go to hell, to go to poop. And that way, when the people are so desperate, they'll listen to the communists. Now, why does this predict the future? This is what's happening right now in the United States.
Police say up to 50 people were involved in a smash and grab robbery today at the Westfield Topanga Mall, stealing merchandise valued up to an estimated $100,000. Just wild to watch this. It was absolute chaos at the Nordstrom store this afternoon.
Takeover in Chicago. Man, check this video out. Look at these Negroes, man.
And stakeholders are extremely dismayed by the City of Chicago's inability to control and develop safe parameters around housing migrants that have been transported here from the border. Our specific frustration lies in the continuous and blatant disregard for the safety and overall quality of life of Black residents, as many of these migrants have been dumped in our neighborhoods without a plan in place to monitor and house them long term.
Czechoslovakia was tough. It had a good army. It had good equipment. It had one of the finest munitions plants in the world, the Skoda Works, which Hitler wanted very badly. It had the incorruptible President Hácha. It had a military alliance with France, and France had a military alliance with Britain. Hitler had to move carefully. He had to find excuses to take Czechoslovakia one piece at a time. He found his excuse in the Sudetenland, the portion of Czechoslovakia bordering Germany. Sudetenland was heavily populated by people of German origin, although they had never been a part of Germany itself. That was Hitler's cue. Konrad Heinlein was their Führer. The people of the Sudetenland were told by Heinlein that they should be liberated. They were told Hitler was their liberator. The Nazis smuggled over their standard softening up equipment, blackjacks. And when the Czechs were beaten up, trying to combat, Hitler protested, claiming that the Germans were being persecuted and threatened war unless he got the Sudetenland.